Следующий наш докладчик – это Дэвид Маккарти из компании GREE. Компания GREE сейчас привлекает более 190 миллионов пользователей. Таким образом, можно назвать ее крупнейшей сетью для геймеров по всему миру. И сейчас у нас есть уникальная возможность узнать о тенденциях развития моделей free-to-play от лидеров гейм-индустрии. So, please welcome.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, thanks very much for coming along. I'm David McCarthy, I'm from a company called GREE, and today I'm hoping to share a little bit about what we know about mobile free-to-play social games, in the hope that it might benefit you. If you find it really boring or dull, please feel free to interrupt with questions and so on. How many of you here know who GREE know? How many here have heard of GREE? Has anybody heard of GREE? Okay. How many of you actually know what we do? Do you know what we do? Okay. Well, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we do, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about what we've learned about mobile free-to-play games. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about our plans for a global platform that we hope will benefit developers. So first, to start with, a little bit about GREE. We're aiming to create the world's largest mobile social gaming platform. So the company was founded in 2004, so 8 years ago, by a guy called Yoshikazu Tanaka, who is now one of Japan's youngest billionaires, so well done him. The company was originally founded as just a social network. So in Japan, we exist as a social network. But recently we founded a subsidiary in San Francisco, and then we acquired OpenFate. So we hope to use OpenFate's users as the basis of expanding our social network globally in the next few months. So we were established 8 years ago. At the end of last year we had about 1,000 employees, which is 3 times growth in 1 year. We've got 234 million users on our network. And we're actually the #1 TV advertiser in Japan as well. You can't turn on the TV in Japan without seeing GREE. So everybody knows us in GREE, but not many people know us outside in Japan. But not many people know us outside of Japan. So we're hoping to change that. So on our network, we've got 8,000 titles. This year, we're expecting to make about 1.7 billion euros in revenue. Our market cap is 5.9 billion, and we're listed on the Tokyo Stock Exchange. So we're a publicly listed company. And we have a very global reach. So we started in Tokyo. I've already mentioned the subsidiary in San Francisco, but we also have offices in Latin America, in Dubai, and in London, which is where I'm currently based. So you can see our user growth and the number of games on our platform just keeps increasing. So at the moment we've got 234 million users in our network, but this is growing every month. And as I'm sure you're all aware, so we focus very much on smartphones and mobile devices. You know, all of the indications are that smartphones and mobile devices are overtaking conventional PC and console gaming, and so that's how we're positioned. And our games are very popular in Japan. So this is this is the top grossing chart on the Japanese App Store, and you can see there one of our games is always in one of the top couple of spots there. Tanken Doriland it's called, and we also have other games in the top 10. This game, Tsuri Star, is a fishing game that has been going since 2007. So our games are very kind of successful in the long term, very long running. So just to give you a quick idea of how things work on our network, if you look at the top box, this is how GREE functions in Japan. So we have our users on one side, and they come to the GREE portal on their feature phones, their old-fashioned feature phones. And then on the other side, we have a lot of development partners who release games on our network using our SDK. So our SDK has a lot of social tools, metrics, analytics, all that kind of stuff. And we also provide a lot of assistance with our development partners, telling them what works well on our platform, what the trends are, and so on and so forth. And down below that is how it's working on smartphones. So in addition to our browser, we also have like a portal where people can download the GREE portal from the App Store and then come and find games that way. So yeah, we want to create a platform for mobile social games. So it's in our interest to help our development partners make the best social games. So we've learned a lot about this space, and developers that we work with come from a variety of different backgrounds. Some people are transitioning from console development, some people are transitioning from mobile paper download development. But the games that do best on our platform are free to play, mobile, social, monetized by in-app transactions. So, you know, like, coming into this space, there's a lot of very basic stuff that is really important to understand. So I thought I'd just go through the very basic stuff that maybe you're all aware of, but it's always useful to remind yourself all the time throughout development of these things. So in our experience, the social mobile games that do well are games that are designed to be casual. They're games that are very simple to understand, very easy to use. The user interface is very easy for users to understand. You know, the key thing about being successful in this market is to attract a really, really wide base of users. And that's very different from paper downloads, from console development. Like, this really is the mass market. So your games have to be very rewarding. They have to be very rewarding from the outset, so that people come back, so that people who haven't invested any money in playing your game are going to come back and return and play it again and again and again. And they need to be played in a short space of time. A lot of our games have, you know, a kind of typically a game cycle that lasts 3 or 5 minutes, you know, so that people can play it waiting for the bus, you know, like while walking down the corridor at work. But, you know, like, people have these devices all the time. Another feature of the most successful games in this area are that they're free to play, so that anybody can try your game. There's no barriers to entry. But that also means that there's a bunch of different people playing your game. There are people who are playing it like really kind of in a hardcore way, logging in every day and playing it. And then there's people who are just dipping in to see if they like it. And you have to cater to all of those audiences in order to be successful. And like I say, our games are monetized by in-app transactions. So it's really crucial that you understand the difference between monetizing a game from in-app transactions to monetizing a game from paper download. People are spending for different reasons. You know, in mobile games, in free-to-play games, people are paying money to show off to friends. It's kind of almost like a luxury. If you consider Maslow's hierarchy of needs, this is kind of at the very top of the pyramid. It's like a luxury handbag. Like, the value does not lie in the kind of intrinsic worth of the goods. The value lies in the capacity of those goods to communicate your status to other people. The other thing about social mobile games is that they're online, so people can play and compete with each other, and that's a crucial part of social games, obviously. That's where the social bit comes in. But the other thing about being online is that you can provide players with new content every day. You can provide them some reason to come back all the time. The other thing is that since we're targeting mobile devices, these things are with people all of the time. Like, people carry their phones all the time. So they carry them while they're on the train, while they're taking a break, while they're waiting for a bus. And you have to provide an experience that fits into that kind of lifestyle, that people can play at any of those points in the day. So that means that games need to be simple, quick, and you need to be able to break down the experience so that people can play it in chunks, so that if they get interrupted, they can come back to it. If they have to get on the bus and pay the bus driver, you know, they can then go back and play the game. But it also means that you're not competing for people's money, you're competing for their time. That's the key thing with these games. So you need to make users want to come back to your game. And the other thing about these social mobile games is that increasingly they're global. The App Store and Android market are available everywhere in the world. So you need to cater to local tastes. You need to understand the different markets and what works in the different markets. And you need to understand that people play for different reasons in different countries. You know, like in Japan, kind of competitive games aren't maybe as popular as they might be in the West, but cooperative games seem to be much more popular. So when you're considering making a social game, I think there's, you know, obviously you're probably all well aware of this, but, you know, there's certain key elements that you need to be aware of. Clearly, the first thing is that you need to acquire users. You need to attract users to your game. So You have to think about this when you're designing the game. Then you need to keep people playing. You know, it's all very well if people start playing your game, but if they don't like the tutorial and then they, you know, wander off to another game, then that's no good for you. Our games, like I say, are very successful. And actually, I saw a very interesting chart the other day. If you look at the App Store kind of top grossing charts, superimposed on the number of downloads, there's a key difference between the kind of games that we release on our platform and kind of casual games, you know, the arcade-style games. And the difference is that if you look at the chart, those casual arcade games, the grossing chart is basically the same as the download chart. So as soon as the downloads start to drop off, so does the revenue. But if you make a successful social game, what happens is that even if the downloads start to drop off, the revenue stays high. And the revenues for our games stay high, you know, in the long term. And of course, you know, the reason for that is the third part of our kind of game design cycle, which is the monetization. You have to give people a reason to spend money in your game. So you need to plan from the outset all of these things. So, you know, you need to think about ways to attract users. You need to think about how you're going to promote your game, how you're going to make it viral. You need to think about promotions. You need to think about tie-ups maybe with kind of brands or with sponsors. And you need to think about, yeah, kind of virtual items. Like, again, you need to think then about how you're going to keep people playing in the long term. So you need to, like, make sure that users keep coming back. And you need to make sure that users like don't unsubscribe from your game. Again, you know, you need to think about different kinds of promotions that are going to help your game to do this. You need to think about giving players bonuses for coming back to your game. And you need to keep periodically updating your game with kind of time-limited campaigns that encourages people to log in. And, you know, again, monetization, you need to think about ways to increase the number of users who are spending money in your game. And you need to think about ways to increase, you know, ways to make items in your game more attractive. So again, this is simple stuff. It's like making sure that the user interface isn't complicated when people get to the shop. It means that if people need an item in your game, you need to make it available to buy when they need it. And you need to kind of show the effects of the items in the game. So again, you know, when you're thinking about the game design, you have to think from the very beginning, you need to think about how to make this game social. You can't think about them in isolation. This is not paper download games. You need to think about how to create a game cycle that incorporates social elements. So, you know, we've done this in a number of different ways. I mean, these are some of the successful games on our platform in Japan. So the top one is Tsuri Star. Very simple fishing game, very easy to understand, very easy user interface. The next one is Klinope, which is a kind of virtual pet kind of game. Again, very simple to understand, very easy interface. And the last one is Hakoniwa, which is, you know, easy to understand. It's make a nice garden. So all of these game concepts are incredibly simple, and I think that's one of the key things. You have to have a very simple to understand concept that people, you know, that there's no barriers to entry. People don't have to work hard to understand our games. And you need to then encourage them to play with friends. So you need to give them a reason within the game to play with friends. You need to give them some kind of benefit in the game, perhaps. Or, you know, just even make the experience more enjoyable. Again, you have to keep thinking about how to encourage your users to communicate with each other when you're thinking about the game design cycle. And it's useful to think of the game design as a cycle rather than a path. You know, it's easy with paper download games to create these paths that people will kind of explore and then come back to because they've already invested money in the game. They want to come back and get their money's worth. With free-to-play games, people haven't invested in anything. So you need to make sure that people keep coming back to a point where they want to start again. So the basic action, you need to think about basic kind of game loops that take, you know, very quickly, are very gratifying very quickly, you know, in about 30 seconds, for example. But you also need to make sure that people really understand that they're progressing through the game. People really need to feel good about playing your games. Again, like the UI needs to be simple, and it needs to be very rewarding. So, you know, everything about your game has to be simple. It has to inspire them and not confuse them. And if you are going to make a more complicated game design, it's important to try and make sure that the different game cycles all complement each other so that people don't get lost in one of your kind of game loops. you've got to make sure that each game loop brings them back to the beginning of another game loop. So, just as an example, this is one of the games that's been doing very well in Japan. This is the game that's kind of consistently one of the top 1 or 2 top grossing games in Japan. And this is very representative of one of our card battle games. So this may look confusing to you because it's all in Japanese, but I can trust me that this game interface is very simple if you understand Japanese. At any point, there's really only kind of one, 2 or 3 things that you can do. So from the very top menu here on the left, you can see that people can buy a new item, which we call a gacha, which comes from the Japanese term for these capsule toys, gachapon toys, where in real life in Japan you can put, 100 yen coin into a machine and you get out a random toy. So in our games we often use this system where people pay maybe 300 yen and in return they get a random card in one of our games. The other thing that they can do from the main screen is to start the quest. So this is just a very simple dungeon exploration, and you can see there's a very gratifying level up screen there. So people feel very happy, feel a good sense of progress when they go through this game. At the top right there, you can see that people can use existing cards to power each other. So that's one game cycle. And then people can, during the quest, they enter into battles. And down the bottom here is an asynchronous cooperative mode where for a limited time only, these kind of big bad bosses appear, and players have a certain amount of time within which to defeat them with cooperation of their friends. And the key thing about these kind of game cycles is that there's always some kind of goal for the player. So there's always a short, middle, and long-term goal. So each game cycle has something to keep the player coming back. So, for example, in Doriland, the very short-term goal is to increase your character level. But in the mid-term, the goal is to acquire new cards. And then in the long term, as people get better and better at this game, the idea is to acquire even kind of stronger cards that they can use to show off with their friends. So if you're cooperating with a new player, that new player can see like how cool you are and how cool your cards are. So it's very simple but very addictive. And again, it's all about kind of making sure that users can share and connect with each other. Obviously, in some parts of this industry, there are maybe kind of companies that focus on whales or the kind of big spenders in their games. But I think it's much more important in the long term to try and make sure that those whales are trying to kind of interfacing with the regular users and trying to make sure that everybody in your game is enjoying it enough to spend money. So, in our games we try to make sure that the game design caters to every kind of player. And so that, different people can, different types of player can encourage the other types of player to play in the same way. So it's really important, when you think about designing games, it's very important to think about how you're going to acquire users from a game design perspective. And it's important not to see user acquisition just as a function of, promotion. Like, user acquisition is a function of the game design. It's really important to think about it that way. It's very important to think about how you're going to incorporate invites, player feeds, all of those kind of things. And with retention, again, it's very important to make sure that you come up with a game design cycle that's going to be successful in the long term. A game design cycle that doesn't run out, essentially. Your game design has to keep going in circles to encourage people to come back for, maybe 2 or 3 years. And in order to do that, you've got to make sure that your users are interacting with each other throughout the whole of that cycle. And again, when it comes to monetization, you've got to make it very clear in the game what the benefits of buying items are, and you've got to make it easy to buy those items for people. So, obviously, a key part of all of those things is understanding metrics, and I'm sure you're all well on top of this. But I just wanted to kind of share with you some of the metrics that we track in our SDK. And it's important to realize that different metrics matter at different times in the game cycle. And it's also really important to understand that even though there's a lot of general metrics that you can think about, it's important in your game to think about how you can create new metrics to track the kind of events and items that are important in your game. But from our perspective, obviously, like the user acquisition and virality related metrics are all these kind of things that I'm sure you know about. CTR, CPC, CPI, invites per DAU, all of that kind of stuff. And then it's important to track the retention-related metrics, retention rates, drop-off rates, session times. And of course, for monetization, it's really important to know about what items people are spending on, average kind of transaction value, all of those kind of things. And another key thing about the long-term success in these games is providing a consistent stream of events to make sure that your games are entertaining in the long term and not just in the short term. So it's really important to keep people playing, and events are a key part in keeping people playing and keeping people interested. So, with a lot of our successful games, we have limited events within a certain number of days of logging on. We might provide players with extra experience in their first week of playing, or extra kind of gold at a certain amount of time. Or we might reduce the cost of some items, for a certain period. Or we give incentives for completing tutorials. So here are some of the games on our network, and some of the typical kind of events. So for example, in Dragon Collection, you can see that there's a lunchtime gacha. So if people log on, between 11:30 and 1 o'clock, they can, receive a free item in the game. Similarly, in Powerful Yakyubu, which is a baseball game, if people log on between 6 and 10 in the morning, they get a free gacha. Or in Pocket Kingdom, every day between 10 o'clock and 2, players get increased experience points. So all of these things encourage people to come back for more. But the other kind of clever thing about this is that they also encourage people to play different kinds of games. So, people might log on in the morning and play Powerful Yakyubu, and then log on at lunchtime to play Dragon Collection. And that's one of the key things about the GREE platform, is that it really is this ecosystem of games, and all of the different games benefit from each other, from cross-promotion, from virality. If people are playing one game, they're likely to try out some of your other games. So by way of example, this is an example of a login bonus campaign. So this is a game where, as you can see on the graph, I hope you can see the actual line, the DAU was dropping off, but a login bonus campaign brought the DAU back up. So it's really important to track the metrics and then to run the right kinds of events to make sure that your metrics stay consistent. But above all of that, and this is I guess the key thing, it's important to be part of a platform, in our opinion. So obviously you can release a game on iOS or on Android Play, you can release it, but I view those games very much as kind of orphans because they're out there on their own. But if you're part of a platform, there's a bunch of different advantages that you can that you gain from doing that. So obviously, one of the key things about this game sector is that the game design has shifted to freemium. Like, it's very clear if you look at any of the top grossing charts that all of the games that are making all of the money are freemium. And obviously, it's very obvious that the reason for that is that people are monetizing more than once. So, clearly I think everybody's familiar with this formula. If you think about your game, the lifetime value of your game is how much money you're making from each user and how long they're playing for. And the great thing about being part of a platform, being part of a network, is that a network kind of keeps people playing for longer, and it decreases the cost of user acquisitions. So it increases the lifetime value of your game. Again, social gaming, it makes acquisition easier through cross-promotion. It makes retention easier because people are communicating between games. There's a liquidity in the social economy as well as the virtual economy. And when it comes to monetization, if you're on a platform with a cross-game currency, then again, there's kind of liquidity in the virtual economy too. So without a platform, it costs money to acquire users. You have to put a lot of effort into various different kinds of promotion strategies. And clearly, like Apple, occasionally these kind of strategies fall foul of Apple, and Apple might kind of ban certain techniques. But in addition, it's they're virally very weak. It's very difficult to help users communicate between games. But clearly there are various kind of platforms that are emerging. Without platforms, again, this is just to sum up, it's difficult and inefficient to acquire users. There's various different platforms that you can use, but they're fragmented. And again, communication is difficult as well. The players in your games are communicating in different ways, and it's very fragmented. But with a platform, you know, it's easy to come up with ways to promote your game, and it's easy to help users communicate, and, you know, it's very easy to help them spend money. So here are some of the platforms that are around today. If you look on this graph, like on the top left, these kind of social platforms like Facebook and Google are kind of pure social networks. If you look towards the right, kind of, there's more of a game focus. Down at the bottom on the left, there's more of a game focus, but less of a kind of social focus. So really where you want to be is you want to be in this top right-hand corner where there's a social network with a games focus. And clearly, you know, we think that we're one of those platforms. So the last thing I want to talk about actually is just our plans for the future. So we're going to be launching a new global platform, and so what we're hoping to do is we're hoping to take this Japanese model and our high ARPU users. We're hoping to leverage OpenFaint's technology and user base to create this new global platform. And we're hoping it's got a bunch of different benefits for developers. So one of them is that it's global, so that you can release the game on the platform and it will be released in all of the territories. It's very social, so we're hoping to create an ecosystem of games so that the users can communicate with each other very easily. And it's open as well, so we're kind of, you know, I guess technology agnostic. So we think it's got a lot of different benefits. It's got benefits for distributing. You know, we've got 234 million users. It's one platform. We have partners who can help you with localization. User acquisition is decreased because of cross-promotion through our various tools like developer announcements. User engagement is maintained. We've got gifts, invites, social sharing, all of that kind of stuff. And again, so the virality is very strong. Friend invites, incentivized invites. And the monetization is very strong as well. So on Android, we've got a unified virtual currency. And we make it very simple to monetize your games globally as well. And the last component is the analytics. I've already mentioned the metrics, but our SDK has kind of tools to track what's going on in your games. So here are some of the partners that we've already announced. So we've got, you know, big name brands and games from some very big partners in Japan. Games like Biohazard or Resident Evil, Monster Hunter, Yakuza, all those kind of games. And then we've got a bunch of games that we've developed in-house. And in fact, if you look down at the bottom right, Zombie is one of our, maybe the first of our card battle games to be released in the West, and it's done very well for us. So we're hoping that we'll have similar successes in the future. We've got major publishing partners in Japan, in China and Korea, and in Europe. So yeah, we hope you'll join us and take advantages of the various kind of benefits of our platform. But yeah, that in a nutshell is what I wanted to talk to you about today. But I'm very happy to take any questions you've got about specific aspects of either GREE or social game design, because you know we've had a reasonable amount of experience in this space in Japan, and we're always happy to help partners by sharing up the information that we know. So thanks very much for coming along today. If you have any questions, please fire away. Thank you.
У кого есть вопросы, поднимайте руку, как всегда, и вам подойдут с микрофоном. Ну, давайте.
Hello, thank you for the presentation. The simple question, do you have any projects in the Russian market, in Russian companies present in App Store or Apple Android market?
So we haven't yet launched our platform, but we're currently talking to several Russian partners to try and get games developed in Russia that we hope to both take, release in Japan and America and the rest of Europe, but also we're hoping to obviously try and tap into the Russian market as well. So yeah, we have stuff in the pipeline, but nothing that we've announced yet or nothing that we've launched yet. But we're always looking for partners, so if anybody wants to talk more about the platform later, then please drop by and give me your information and we can follow up later.
говорили про разные типы целей в играх, то, что есть цели короткие, средней длительности и длинные цели.
I will translate.
Так вот, упоминалось, что в хорошей игре должны быть цели короткие, средние и длинные. И я так понял, что короткая цель это 30 секунд, а средние и длинные цели это какие периоды времени?
You have spoken about the goals in game, short goals, middle goals, and long goals. And the time of the short goals is like 30 seconds. And what is the time for middle and long?
So I guess it depends on the game, but yeah, so our game cycles are very short, but in terms of the placement of the goals, I guess, yeah, the kind of sub-goals need to be fairly frequent. The medium-term goals, I guess, can take maybe kind of one or, a day or two. In the long term, I mean, we're talking about, I guess, kind of months and years. Like, we really try hard to get people playing for a long, long time in our game. So the long-term goals are, yeah, very long-term, if that helps.
Okay, one more question.
То есть, все-таки у игры должна быть какая-то цель, пусть и на год или на два, то есть есть момент, в который игра заканчивается.
No. We try and have goals we try and have incentives that kind of keep on giving, I guess. So, when players are very successful in our games, they will still want to keep playing the game, partly because of the way that we try to tie together the heavy users with the light users, so that we give heavy users an opportunity to share their experience and kind of knowledge and items and cards with lighter users. So yeah, that's one of the ways that we try and keep people playing for a long time.
Еще вопросы?
Можно прогноз на следующие 2 года насчет самых популярных жанров в флеш-играх?
In flash games or in mobile social? Flash. Well, so, I mean, our games are mobile social games. I mean, the kind of games that we make, I think, like I say, the big success story in Japan has been this card battle game, where players are collecting cards and using them then in a bunch of different ways. But normally, for example, in Tanken Doriland, they're exploring a dungeon, using the cards to fight enemies, but they're also then using them for kind of multiplayer asynchronous battles, where they can actually kind of lend their cards to other users. So that's been very successful for us in Japan, and our first attempt to do it outside of Japan with Zombie Zombie has also been very successful. There's, I think, maybe some other Japanese companies have started to release these kind of games in the West, and they're proving to be very successful. So I think those are definitely going to be a genre to watch. But I think, it's very early now. At the moment, we're launching our platform, and one of the things that we do very kind of assiduously is to measure the metrics, track the KPI. So I guess what we're hoping to do is to release games that cover kind of every segment of the market and every genre, and then see what works, and then kind of try and expand on those areas that work. So again, it's very difficult to predict the future, but it's very easy to track the metrics and see what is working and follow it that way.
Спасибо за доклад. Вопрос касается объемов трафика GREE. Вот 234 миллиона, это, во-первых, за какой период, а во-вторых, откуда этот трафик, то есть где он находится, и какой объем русскоязычного трафика?
At the moment, our Japanese users make up about 20% of the user base. The rest of the user base has predominantly come from our OpenFaint acquisition. So most of their users are based in America and Europe. I'm not sure precisely what the percentage of Russian language users it is. But yeah, I mean, looking at the numbers, it seems to be, just looking at the graph, it seems to be that we're adding about 10 million users a month at the moment. So, you know, we're not really promoting the network yet. So we're hoping when we launch the global platform that we will start to increase users at an increased rate as well. As it says on the last slide, we are targeting a 1 billion users. That's where we want to be in the next few years. And as I say, in Japan, we're already like the #1 TV advertiser. So, you know, I'm sure that we will have, when we start to promote our services in the West, then people will become more aware of us and it will be easier for us to acquire users.
234 миллиона, это только те, которые с мобильных устройств играют, или еще как-то иначе?
At the moment, it's just mobile devices.
The question is about the licensing model of the GREE platform, and where is your interest of the GREE platform and you as a company?
So sorry, could you repeat that?
There is the interest of the GREE company in providing this platform. There is your money.
Oh, where does our money come from?
Yep.
Okay, so we have three revenue streams. The first is that we make our own games. So we derive all of the revenue from the in-app transactions. The second is that when we work with our partner developers, we take a share of the revenue, typically. In the same way that you might pay 30%, I think, to Facebook or to the App Store, we enter into a revenue share agreement. I think our standard terms at the moment are 10.5% of gross, but that might not be fixed in stone, so don't quote me on it. But yeah, we take a revenue share. And then obviously we derive money from our ad sales business as well. We provide the platform for free, normally, conventionally, under a revenue share agreement. So any sale that goes through our systems, we take a share of each sale. Yeah, but I mean, if your game makes no money on our platform, then we don't take any money. Which is why we like to help our partners by giving them as much information as we can about how to make games that are successful, about what's working on our platform, about the trends, and so on and so forth.
And in case what you're just talking about, do you provide any maybe detailed white papers or something like this document which will help to beginning developers start a project and will help them?
Not so much white papers, but in Japan the way it works is that we, on an ongoing basis, when a developer comes to us with an idea, they'll be assigned an account manager who will help them and give them advice. In addition, we have regular seminars and events for our partners, so they can come and learn about what's going on our platform, about the different technological changes, but also, like I say, about social game design, about the trends, what genres are doing well and why, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Do you plan to launch some project like account management?
We plan to have it in Europe, yeah. I mean, at the moment, our European operations will be handled from the UK, but we would hope to hire, somebody who can speak Russian, for example. But yeah, we're targeting the whole of Europe, including Russia, right? So we want to ramp up very quickly in Europe to be able to offer exactly the same level of service as we do in Japan.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation and inquired about your game Zombie Jombie. Could you share with us your success story on iOS platform? If it is possible, of course.
Sorry, I'm not sure. What exactly do you mean?
I mean your game Zombie Jombie. It was very popular on iOS platform, and if it is possible, could you share with us your success? How it became popular there?
Oh, how it became popular? I guess yeah, I'm not totally sure how much detail you want me to go into, but obviously the zombie game cycle is modeled on games that we know to have been successful in Japan. So when we launched Zombie, I think we used a certain amount of promotion, and it entered very highly in the charts, and it's maintained a very kind of decent position for us in terms of the top grossing revenues. I mean, it's very difficult to say very more than that unless you have specific questions, I'm afraid. Is that okay? Sorry. Feel free to, anybody, feel free to come and grab me afterwards as well if you have more information that you want to get out of me.
Еще?
I have a question regarding that you develop games for your own platform, so many developers think about that kind of stuff like in competitive and something like some companies also in Russia have their own platform and release the game, and many people think that it's unfair, and so most of big companies normally do not cooperate with such kind of platforms, and what do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, we obviously make games for ourselves, and yeah, they're very successful, but for us, for our platform as a whole, it makes sense to create this ecosystem. If it was just our games on the platform, then the benefits would be very small. Like, the network effects get bigger the larger the network. The more games on the platform, the more people communicating with each other, the more people trading invites, the more people playing our games, playing different games together, is good for us. So we want to create an ecosystem of games of all different types and sizes. And like, our development partners will be able to come up with ideas that we might not have thought of. But for that reason, and for the reason I stated before, because we do this on a revenue share basis, and because we want long-term success and not short-term success, we work very hard with our partners to share as much information as we can. Like, we leverage what we learn from our own in-house game development, and we share those techniques and attitudes and approaches with our development partners, and they're free to use that, to benefit from that knowledge. If we're helping our partners, it helps us in the long term too, right? So that's what's in it for us. But yeah, we don't see it as a competition between the games on our platform. We hope that all of the games on our platform can coexist and find a place. There are games on our platform that are very successful, that are making $20 million a month, that require a lot of investment in terms of maybe marketing or development. But equally in Japan we have games put together by a handful of guys, like essentially indie developers. And we're more than happy to help those guys too. And those guys aren't going to be making millions of dollars a month, but they'll be making enough to make development sensible for them, to make it a viable kind of project.
And how do you take your revenue share? Do you have your own billing platform or so? And if so, then how do you work
on the web?
iOS?
So when our global platform launches, we will initially be supporting native iOS and Android. So we will be going through the operators' billing solutions. So on Apple, the billing will go through Apple, and in that case, I think the developer receives the money, and then we'll transfer our share. On Android, it's the other way around, I believe. I believe we receive the money and then transmit the rest of it to the developer. On browser-based games in Japan, and eventually if we add browser functionality to our global platform, we use our own payment solution, and in that case, yeah, we receive the money and then communicate it to the developer.
Thank you.
Спасибо большое. У меня два вопроса, если позволите. Первый вопрос. Какие инструменты вирусного маркетинга, кроме упомянутых на слайдах, вы используете на азиатском и американском рынках?
Okay, so I think I understand the question. I mean, we have kind of built-in virality in our platform. So our SDK has stuff like player feeds, invites, gifting functionality. So that creates its own virality. So, most successful games on our platform will have an invite rate of maybe 40 or 50%. So, you know, nearly half of the users of the most successful games will be coming because they've been invited by other GREE users. In addition, like all of the games, like we have a player feed so that people can see what their GREE friends are doing, and then they might click on that link as well. So those are the kind of viral marketing tools that we have. I think we also have, maybe we have like kind of certain partnerships in place with some external kind of viral and marketing tools as well. So yeah, you're also free to use those as well. If you need more information on that, feel free to follow up, because I don't want to say it now in case I get it wrong.
Thank you. И the second question. На ваш взгляд, игры флэш в социальных сетях потихоньку сходят на нет и вперед выходят игры на мобильных платформах, или все-таки какое-то еще время игры в соцсетях будут популярны?
Well, obviously our experience is all in mobile social, so I'm less knowledgeable about Flash games than I am about mobile social. I think, I mean, personally, I don't see why they're going to disappear. I think people are, you know, there's a broad market, and the market keeps growing, so I don't think it's going to get any smaller. Maybe the growth might slow down, but yeah, I'm afraid I can't give you a good answer on that one. Sorry.
Greetings. What is the future of open space, or open plane platform now when it has been purchased by GREE? Will GREE like support it, or will it be replaced in Europe and Western markets by GREE?
It will essentially be replaced by GREE. So we will continue to support it for a certain amount of time. We'll start to, once the new GREE platform is rolled out, I think after that point we won't be adding any new kind of versions of OpenFaint, but we will continue to support it. But we hope to migrate the games from OpenFaint over to the GREE platform. Obviously the GREE platform in Japan is designed around these free-to-play mobile social games, and obviously some of the OpenFaint games might be paper download and stuff like that. So they might not get as much uplift from some of the functionality in the SDK that I've mentioned, but we still think there's a, you know, definitely a good place for them on the GREE platform. So we're going to have a special kind of, we're going to work hard to integrate those into the GREE platform. Yeah. If you need any more information about that, do feel free to chase me up again. And if you're working with OpenFaint now and you have like kind of account managers, then feel free to chase them as well.
Thank you.
Last question. Скажите, пожалуйста, как вы думаете, какой будущее платформы Windows Phone? Какие на сегодняшний день результаты этой платформы? И как вы оцениваете, какие перспективы у нее в будущем? Именно вот, допустим, на ваш.
I mean, at the moment, like our focus is on iOS and Android because those markets already exist. I think we're keen to support as many platforms as we can, right? So if it's a success, then we'll definitely be on there. I guess the jury's out a little bit, isn't it? I mean, I've heard kind of mixed reports from developers whether they like it or not. But you know, again, like Microsoft obviously have a big track record of success. So if they want it to be successful, I'm sure they'll make it successful.
Thank you. Спасибо вам за вашу активность. Если у вас остались еще какие-то вопросы, вы можете задать их докладчику на перерыве.